Bob Menendez, senator from New Jersey, is an openly corrupt individual. I cannot believe he's still in power. He had a primary challenger that did a little bit better than expected a few years ago, but he still hung on to power. The New Jersey Democratic Party seemed very disinterested in weeding out such an openly corrupt individual, but nonetheless, he's still around. He has been at the forefront of pushing Russian sanctions. And here he, sorry, what? Oh, no, here he is framing the issue of taxation differentials among states in a way that I think is really problematic for Democrats and should be a lesson in what not to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't come here to talk about SALT, but since the ranking member raised it, let me just say, if I was Pennsylvania, I'd like the way things are. Pennsylvania gets $15 billion more from the federal treasury than it contributes to the federal treasury. So if we could do that, I'd be happy to make a deal with all my colleagues who have a problem with SALT that we'll just get back whatever we send. And New Jersey would be very happy. Because there are maker states like New Jersey that invest in education and research and development, in infrastructure that helps it drive the economy and sends billions to the federal treasury more than it gets in return. So it's a maker state. And then there are those states that I call Moocher states that get a lot more than it sends to the federal treasury. So if you want to continue to have states that are maker states, that are blue chip states, that make money for the federal treasury, then just continue to ox the state and local property tax deduction, which is the longest serving part of the federal code in terms of a deduction. And you will see those states be less of maker states so that you can continue to mooch off of it.
So that is, okay.
Appalling.
The appalling. The best way to interpret that is that he is trying to appeal to his constituents by speaking in that way. Another wrinkle to it is he's using Pennsylvania as an example. Pretty bizarre. Did that have anything to do with an exchange with a senator or?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure he was talking about Pat Toomey.
I was about to say, was it Pat Toomey? Yeah, okay.
And just to your point, Em, about the primary challenger he had literally like $3,000 in the
barely ran. Yeah,
40% of the vote. Like a potted plant could beat Bob Menendez in New Jersey.
Yeah, it was one of the more depressing. Was that 2018? Yeah. 2018 developments, because he definitely was beatable, but there was a pretty significant suppression of his primary challenge, despite having open corruption investigations into him, or that having been the case. But regardless, this is why maybe, I don't know, Democrats don't do super well in certain areas of the country. One, yes, it's a propaganda effort. Yes, it's because the Republicans are more well-funded, but it's also because of attitudes like this. And he's using a classist argument about other states that don't have the resources that New Jersey does, but is because it's in the immediate vicinity of New York City and in Philadelphia in the South.
That's the thing, is like New Jersey, the main industries by a long shot are Pharma, finance, and professional and business services, and like
Pharma too.
And those so-called maker states, like maybe that was true like a bygone era of American manufacturing, but what that means now is you basically are monetizing and bringing to market and capitalizing on all the other taker states, all the resources in those taker states, right? Like that's why it's really, really something to sit there as Bob Menendez and call other states like, yeah, you're like the loading dock for New York. I mean, sorry, no offense to New Jersey, but like,
hey,
whoa,
no, but that's the truth. That's the truth. It's just like, stockbrokers that want a little bit more greenery, and then they'll go to their Wall Street apartment at night and blow some lines and have an affair with with their mistress. I mean, that's like a lot of what happens in Jersey.
Like, look at us making all of these securities, and like, I think no, you're not making anything by moving money around like people's mortgages and stuff in the rest of the country.
And Em and I are from New Jersey, and we're saying this.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've met too many of those folks who are not makers, and they're not even particularly likable. But the point is that he is using this classist argument to justify a state and local tax deduction for further allowing the wealthiest people in his state, and this affects New York, and it affects suburbs and blue areas.
Who gets that deduction? Is that the makers? Is that the maker deduction?
Apparently.
You make stuff with your hands. Is it just you do hard labor? You get that SALT deduction.
The passive income deduction, the sit on your ass deduction, after you've accumulated enough capital to put it into some sort of fund. Anyway.
I mean, you wonder why the Democratic Party is where it is, where kids are just going to go hungry now when they didn't need to be. We're just going to let that lapse. Remember back when the child tax credit came in, and it's like, oh yeah, it's going to be hard for Democrats to, let this lapse. No, it wasn't.
No,
it wasn't. They just let it lapse because this is who they are.
Yeah, and that's why, last point on this, he mentioned Pennsylvania. That's why Fetterman's a really refreshing candidate, and important to bring back certain voters to the Democratic Party, because having guys like this say just people in Pennsylvania are take or moochers, it's a middle finger, and it's a gift to the Republicans. It's just, this is why the party needs to be fundamentally reshapen.
It allows him to say his class thing, but make it about blue and red states, basically.
Mm-hmm. But Pennsylvania, again, is a bad example, even though it was in a spat with Toomey. It's a especially bad example when you have a pro-union populist Democrat who could potentially actually win. Like, fuck off.